Okay, well, hello and welcome back. Now, today is going to be really interesting. There are all kinds of assorted topics, so I'm going to do a separate video for each one. Um, the first one, so we're picking up in Numbers chapter 21, and let me see here. I will be reading, and I apologize for any background noise. There are all kinds of things going on in the background, but um, you know, anyway, I guess, yeah, I'll be reading this whole thing. Okay, so yeah, I'll just roll along and it'll all come up. So, okay, now, the king of Arad, the Canaanite, who dwelt in the south, heard that Israel was coming on the road to Atharim. Then he fought against Israel and took some of them prisoners. Okay, so we're at the point where, they've come up through the wilderness and they are getting to the area where they're going to enter the land. They haven't lifted a finger yet, they're just camped there. And the word has spread that, God is with them, He's leading them, and He's going to like fight for them, go before them, all that stuff. And I don't know if they knew He had promised them the land. I don't know. But they were all in fear of them because they knew that mighty wonders were done for their sake. So they didn't know what was coming next and they were kind of concerned, right? That was the deal. So, but they hadn't done anything, they were just there outside in the open land. And this is the first thing that happens here. This king of the Canaanites heard that Israel was coming on the road to this Atharim. Then he fought against Israel and took some of them prisoners. So who threw the first punch here, right? So, okay, just keep that, put that on a list because there's more. So Israel made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And the Lord listened to the voice of Israel and delivered up the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities. So the name of that place was called Hormah, which means utter destruction. Okay, this theme will pick up, but now we get this with the bronze serpent, which is another type of Christ. Surprise! Okay, so verse 4. Then they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, and the soul of the people became very discouraged on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and our soul loathes this worthless bread. So the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of the people of Israel died. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and it shall be that everyone who is bitten, when he looks at it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and put it on a pole, and so it was, if a serpent had bitten anyone, when he looked at the bronze serpent, he lived. And it's bronze, which is a type of judgment. So, I mean, you totally see the cross here, But that's it. You turn there, you look, turn there, to Jesus, and you live. So that's all symbolized in this. Okay, now it jumps back to this. So now the children of Israel moved on and camped in Oboth, and they journeyed from Oboth and camped at Ije Abarim in the wilderness, which is east of Moab, toward the sunrise. From there, they moved and camped in the valley of Zeret. From there, they moved and camped on the other side of the Arnon, which is in the wilderness that extends from the border of the Amorites. So it was Moab and Ammon that were the descendants of Lot and the daughters, and it was Edom that was the descendant of Esau, like the land, the nation, that came from there. So they weren't supposed to take that. That was for those people. Okay, so for the Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord. Okay, all right, so it says this. From there they went to Beer, which is the well where the Lord said to Moses, gather the people together, and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song. Okay, we're getting there. And from the wilderness they went to Matana, from Matana to Nahaliel, from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth in the valley that is in the country of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, which looks down on the wasteland. Okay, so they're out there. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, okay, so we get another deal here. So Sihon is the king of the Amorites. They sent messengers to him saying, let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into fields or vineyards. We will not drink water from wells. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. So they were only asking for passage through. Okay, that's all they did. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were just asking. It's just like the king's highway was the main, I guess, traveling route for kings and merchants, and it was the best shortcut instead of going around the whole place. So they were just asking to use that. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. Okay, like Edom had done that, but they went around. But here, look what's next. So Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel in the wilderness, and he came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. So, question, had Israel done anything wrong? Answer, no. Okay, had this king done something wrong? Yes. Okay, he attacks them for no reason. If they're afraid, well, too bad. I mean, unless you throw the first blow, you have no reason to retaliate, somebody else. So it doesn't. So anyway, so he attacks them. Okay, they have a right to attack back and defend themselves. Then Israel defeated him with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as the people of Ammon, for the border of the people of Ammon was fortified. Okay, let's see. I think that's it there. They took these places. It just has details, but there's nothing else. They had taken all this land from his hand as far as the Arnon. So they got all this land. There's another proverb then that comes in here. But, I mean, this is how it went. Like, they struck first, they struck back, and then they got the land. I mean, this was a different time, by the way. So just want to mention that. But okay. Now, thus Israel dwelt in the land of the Amorites. Then Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they took its villages and drove out the Amorites who were there. So this was still part of the Amorite area. Okay, so they got that, and it all just happened. Like it kind of fell into place. They hadn't done anything wrong, but they were just using self defense, and then this happened. Okay, and they turned and went up by the way to Bashan. So Og, king of Bashan, went out against them. Yeah, so they went again by a way, and then this guy goes out after them. He went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Do not fear him, for I have delivered him into your hand, with all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon." So they defeated him, his sons, and all his people, until there was no survivor left him, and they took possession of his land. So, it just went like this, like dominoes, boom, 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 And again, who came out against who first? That's just how these things would go. I mean, but I wanted to mention this because there's so much talk about what was going on back then. Like I've seen a bunch of comments on the internet about this, like, oh, they're calling it all these things, all these names that don't apply to it. Like, as if all these innocent people were dying or something like that. Well, first of all, no, they were not innocent people, okay? One thing is they did have giants in the land, and the giants were the descendants that were mixed. They weren't all human. You have to go back to Genesis chapter 6 to read about how that happened. I think it was chapter 6, but it's early Genesis that comes up, and I talked about it in that video. So they were weird, I don't want to call it a race, but group. So anyway, there's that. They were in the land. I mean, they even said it, that they were giants in the land. Then we have the fact that God was waiting for, he knew there were people there, but they were doing some serious wickedness, and he wanted to wait for that to kind of reach its full, their wickedness and their sin, and then judgment would fall on them. And surprise, this was the judgment. So there's that. And also, Israel had to kind of grow in size on their way up there for different reasons. So there were different things going on during that time. This was the time for them to go in. But here, like, I'm going to read these verses real quick. It's kind of in different spots, so I'm going to go there. We were in there a bit ago, but Leviticus 18. Yeah, 18, 24 to 25, which is right here. Okay, so it's Leviticus 18 from 24 to 25. Do not defile yourselves with any of these things, for by all these the nations are defiled, which I am casting out before you, for the land is defiled. Therefore I visit the punishment of its iniquity upon it, and the land vomits out its inhabitants. All right. And then he says, you shouldn't do any of these things, or the same thing will happen to you, basically is that part of it. Then, let's see, where is this one? Oh, for all these abominations the men of the land have done, who were before you, and thus the land is defiled, lest the land vomit you out also when you defile it. as it vomited out the nations that were before you. For whoever commits any of these abominations, the persons who commit them shall be cut off from among their people. Okay, and then, all this. So we have that, and then we have Deuteronomy. Nine, and it's 4-5. So here, do not think in your heart after the Lord your God has cast them out before you, saying, because of my righteousness the Lord has brought me in to possess this land. But it is because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is driving them out from before you. It is not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart that you go in to possess their land, but because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord your God drives them out from before you, and that he may fulfill the word which the Lord swore to your fathers, and all that, to give them the land and everything. So, all right. Well, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's where it ends. But, so there's another one. There are more, but, there's so many places where it's like, he waited till their wickedness reached a certain fullness, and then he himself judged these people, and the judgment came by this happening here where they came into the land. And so it was like he was waiting for that time to be ripe of their wickedness, so the judgment would really be due, and it was because of that, their wickedness, that they were judged because of that sin. So, like, he was driving them out, and the land was polluted from this, and that's why they were being driven out. And it came by this way, they were entering the land. So, I mean, God works that way, and that's fine, but that's what was happening. It wasn't like, oh, these were just a bunch of innocent people in this case, So, there are all these silly comments on the internet. It's just, we got to educate them. So I'm trying here. If they'll ever watch this is another thing. Okay, so here, and then, so this is Deuteronomy chapter 18, and it's 9-12. When you come into the land which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire. So this was what they were doing. They were sacrificing their children to, like, Moloch, and Baal and all that. And there was blood on the land. But they were the ones, shedding innocent blood and killing people. And this is why their judgment was ripe. They were polluting the land with the blood. And that's what the Bible says happens. Land gets polluted by bloodshed, innocent people who get murdered. So that's what was happening. And he says, you better not do this yourselves, or the same thing will happen to you. But that's what they were doing. They were doing all kinds of things like this. And, this is why this was like one of the heights of wickedness here that they were doing. And that's why they had to go. And I mean, it's God's planet. He made it, and he gets to decide, okay, no, you're being wicked and you're out. That's how it goes. It doesn't matter if people want to acknowledge that or not. That's still the way it is, So anyway, that's what was going on. So anyway, that's why it was totally justified to let judgment fall on them, and they got, eliminated. So anyway, and then it says, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. So this is all occult. For all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God drives them out from before you. See, so that's the deal. You shall be blameless before the Lord your God, for these nations which you will dispossess listened to soothsayers and diviners. But as for you, the Lord your God has not appointed such for you. So, okay. So they were doing these things, and then, there are other verses, but that's enough of a sample here. But there are a lot of verses that, talk about how they're not supposed to get involved with the other gods and, those religions from the surrounding, those nations, or any of those, of course. And so, there's some serious consequences for that. And when some people read those things, they might fall over backwards, like, what? Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a serious thing because you have two sides, there's good and evil. And if it's not God's side, it's evil. And they open up a demonic portal, and it does infest and spread like a cancer. And these are the things that come as a result of that this human sacrifice stuff here. Okay, we see that today in different forms, right? It looks a little more medical, but it's the same thing. So anyway, this is what happens, and then judgment comes. So that's how it goes. But those are the things that they weren't supposed to do, and it's a very serious thing. And then today in the church, we see this all the time, that they just want to embrace all this stuff. And they're making the same error. It's like, no, there's one truth, and that's it. None of this other stuff, okay? It's Jesus or it's nothing. Those are the choices. Well, okay, anyway, so I covered all that about this topic, and I'm going to leave this as a separate video. Okay, so this is just chapter 21, and it's just that issue. Okay, now I'm going to do 22 and on, because this is another hot topic. Okay, so I'll be right back.